Corey Hunter.
Hey, are your guys' microphones on?
No.
Susan
I
Spanish.
just turned it on.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool, because nothing was coming through.
Sorry.
Can you hear it now?
Okay.
I've been waiting to say, can you hear me now?
Okay, so we got Susan.
Susan
Corbett,
Spanish.
Corey Hunter.
Corey Oxner.
And John Bain is here.
Okay, so we got 4. Sarah looks like she's right on the way in. And we have absent is Ron, Dan, and Todd tonight. All had other commitments that they could not make it tonight. And from a roll call standpoint.
Sorry, I'm late. I was
No, you're
prepared
good.
today.
You're good. This is perfect.
Okay.
Just state your name.
Sarah Miller.
Perfect. And with Sarah being here, we have quorum. So with that, we will move forward to the, that was roll call agenda approval. On the agenda tonight, we just wanted to get kind of an update of if anyone here or what we heard at the 4th of July, go over the 5-year trail plan, the amenities priorities list, and then from those two, discuss briefly Town 15 vision and what we think that could entail in the future from some of the amenities and trails that we have, or just anything. And then what budget recommendations we may have from the 5-year trail plan or amenities that we've looked at throughout town, and what we think the 2020 budget should hold. And then just a couple quick updates with the CAPS master plan participation tomorrow night. If anyone can attend, please think about that between 5:30 and 8-ish. And then we didn't walk a park tonight because I forgot about it last month. And we can touch base on that at the end of the meeting and decide where or how we want to move forward. So any changes to, and then and then any other changes to the agenda? Any hot items?
No, one quick thing, it's just an update really in that the board at their next meeting is going to be talking about our weed and pest management plan, which we typically go over at some time in the year.
The weed and pest management plan is the how we maintain the greenery around here and the different sprays. And
we've been getting a lot of questions about the chemicals used, so we thought let's have a broader discussion around pros and cons.
And I know I probably have it on the third quarter work plan that just go over we usually get an update from the town staff. And I didn't put it on tonight's agenda though. I thought we might.
I just found out about it myself.
Okay. Well, we can slip that into next month just to cover that. Okay. Any other agenda items that people want to touch base on? Okay. And then moving on to the next item, number 4, we have public comment. If you'd like to say anything or talk.
No, I'm here to observe.
Wonderful. It's great to have you. So with that, we'll roll into first bullet point 5 is our discussion items. And first item would be 4th of July booth update. And I rely on whoever was at that to provide some input.
I was there. I checked in with
with
everybody.
Perfect. So go ahead.
Yeah, I just thought it went well. We had a number of people stop by. It was very congenial. A lot of people just kind of wanted to say hi. There were some kids that came up and asked some questions about trails on Coyote Ridge. Could they ride their motorized bikes? They can. But other than that, it was really very nice, and a lot of people just kind of came by to see what we were doing. It seemed like to me. Ron and I kind of stayed until the end, and I helped him pack some stuff up. But we had quite a few people stop by, which was nice.
Perfect.
From my perspective, it was actually very welcoming, and I kind of thought this was going to be the case, that we did not have a focused conversation we wanted to have with them. It wasn't that we were trying to focus it on Riverbend or trying to focus it on Town 15 or a rec center or anything. It's what do you guys want to talk about? This is what we do. This is what we are. Here's some trails. What do you guys want to talk about? And I had about 3 or 4 conversations before I had to leave, and it was all over the place. But a lot of it was more of a, hey, we just really like the fact that they moved to this area because we do have the trails, we do have the open space, we do have this, and they just wanted to kind of talk about how much they appreciate the fact that even though people get frustrated in Superior when we try to make any change or not, that they like the fact that we're very focused on having open space, having trails, having connectivity, and that the town takes advisement from PROSTAC. So that's the general information that I got from most folks. They just really appreciate it.
Okay.
I guess, sorry to interrupt again, but I think you guys aren't using your microphone.
Yeah, I
It's on.
apologize.
It's
I
on.
just realized mine hadn't been on.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
Yeah, but like the last like minute or two that the two of you guys.
This one's been on.
yeah.
Okay. You gotta make sure it's on when you talk to this.
We'll keep
I
going.
haven't turned it on.
Please project into the microphone
Yeah.
as we continue forward.
Sorry. Yeah, just to repeat my comment, we just had a lot of people stop by basically to say hello and kind of see what was going on. And it was nice to have people, to have OSAC right next to us and reps from OSAC there kind of talking to the same people and kind of comparing a little bit what we do and what they do and the overlap. And it just worked out well, I thought.
Okay, John or Sarah, did you attend? And
I was there, saw the booth. I was chasing two kids, so I spent no time, and I apologize for that. Next year.
understood.
Yeah, I was not able to attend.
It's all good. I guess I was, go ahead, Neil.
Or,
I wasn't there, but Allison was there.
I was gonna say, I wasn't there either, and I normally am there, and I like the community input, but anything else from your perspective, Allison?
I think our trails, our updated trails map that we had worked really well to just as a visual, that it was larger instead of the smaller items. And then we had a picture of the skate park, kind of a overview, you know, a shot that was taken down, and it had people in it, an aerial view, thanks. And I thought that was really nice because a lot of people, I felt, really didn't know that that was there. And I thought everybody, a lot of people showed up, and our members showed up. And I thought that the booth was a little tight with committee members, but I thought it was nice to have some overlap and people to work together on kind of some mutual items, which is nice. And everybody looked pretty happy.
I just know from previous experiences that the discussions are usually pretty well, and with the trails map and parks or open space shown on the same map, there's a lot of discussion about just interconnectivity and activities and amenities within parks. So, and then, you know, the 3D aerial, I appreciate that because that was I wanted to make sure that we actually project out that, you know, we did finish this, and if you don't know about it, here it is, because we've had previous discussions with handing out flyers that we're going to do it, and it's just, you know, finally showing that it's done is a great thing, just to let people know.
And if anybody's been out there recently, I was out there today, and the grass is all grown back. It's beautiful out there. There was a ton of kids out there this morning, and it's looking great, and I hope everybody's had a chance to go enjoy it.
I do have two comments for staff on the booth itself. One, it was a little bit cumbersome. The banner there was right over the chairs, and it was right up against the table. So we couldn't stand up because if you try to, you could fit all five of us that were there at the time I was there if you stood up, because you could move a little bit. But then the banner was on top of your head right here.
And I think the members put that up because we just had the banners at the table.
In previous years, we always put it in the back.
In the back, yeah.
Because it's always in the way in the front.
The other thing was the trail map. We probably want to try to clean that up a little bit because it had a bunch of internal comments on the trail map that we probably didn't really want on there. It didn't make sense. There was some comments on there that says, I think we should clean this up, or I think it has some thoughts on it, on the actual trail map. The big one that we had, it had like these yellow bullets. It wasn't these, but it was a different one that had some comments, but it was an internal comment that was just someone's opinion about something, and it caused some confusion.
Was that the passport map?
No, it was the big one that was blown up on that.
Oh, that wasn't our map. That was OSAC's map.
Okay, that was OSAC's, right. Because I didn't recognize those comments anyways, but.
Yeah, no.
But anyway, so if we do those things, we should maybe just double check that we have the right one we want to put and clean up any internal comments.
Well,
I tweaked the passport map for us, so that was our.
That's fine, just
Well,
FYI.
and I guess the other thing would be is we've been working on it for a while of trying to have the exact same map. And there are a lot of maps out there. And we have the proposed trail map, which we'll look at here shortly, versus the what's built and what's there,
Yeah.
plus that's the,
It was more the
Yeah.
internal comments that just seemed out of place, and it was, I think this should be this, or it, there was two comments on
Too
there that
many
just seemed
commentary.
really out of place, and people were asking questions, and like, no, that was that was just a way to communicate from one person to another person that
Oh.
shouldn't have been on the map.
Yeah, and that might have been something that OSAC requested from their
I
group.
think they probably submitted the map and didn't realize those comments were on there.
Yeah,
okay.
sounds good.
Well, the only other comment, usually, was there any recommendations or requests for, I really like this trail, I wish this trail would be updated, I wish there was some updates to amenities in any park that you heard that we could just kind of make sure we track and, try and put on a list somewhere if there's any comments like that.
I think Ron and Dan will probably have a lot of those, because they were out there a lot with Susan. I didn't get any of that.
Okay. Well, no matter what, we can circle back around if there's additionals that maybe they can bring back next month, but, all right?
So do you want to put that on the agenda again for next month?
Yeah, I mean, we could just leave it here if there was any additional feedback from Ron, Dan, and Todd. I don't know, Todd wasn't there.
I didn't see Todd.
No, he couldn't make it.
It was a pretty nice morning. The logistics for pancakes seemed a little better this year, and there was obviously a good turnout and a lot of happy people.
I like the pancakes in the back. It changes the whole dynamic of the space.
There was a lot of thought that went into that. I'm so glad you liked it.
I wasn't there this year, but.
Or everyone liked it.
Okay.
Can I add something on the trails?
Sure, if you want to come up and add a public comment.
It's allowed.
No, you can. We'll
State your
allow you
names.
to have some public comment. Just state your name and address.
Ramona Roush, 2969 Tierra Ridge Court.
And there's a sign-in sheet there also.
Okay, I'll get that. I just wanted to let you know, you were looking for comments on trails, and just as a generic thing, I was volunteering to either join this committee or to act as someone to support the committee. I do most of my traveling between here, Boulder, and Louisville via bike.
Mm-hmm.
So I see those trails a lot, and I have a lot of feedback on what's working and what's not, and I'm looking for an avenue to present that to you guys. So that's my comment.
And typically at these meetings, you're more than welcome to show up and provide additional public comment and just tell us your opinion or improvements or requests, and we can start tracking that within the committee and within our documentation.
Could I also provide something in writing to make it easier for you?
That would work as well. Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
And I would highly recommend, if you really want, submit something as an email to the PROSTAC. We can read it ahead of time, and you can follow it up with comments, and then maybe we can even
I
ask you
haven't read that.
questions based on that if we have after we read the email.
And my understanding is you sent an email earlier today.
Yes.
I haven't read it, but I was copied on an email earlier today. Right?
I did not send it with specific feedback on the trails, but just I had some interest in the committee and was trying to
Okay.
figure a way to participate.
And Ramona has filled out an application for
Wonderful.
committee members, so I'm excited.
Well, thank you for your comments and interest. Okay, so moving down, I guess we've closed public comment, right? Is that official? And the time is 7:15.
Just so everybody knows, I have new software that I'm time stamping our video with as we go through items. And since it's new for me, I told Corey to,
To give you a nod.
yes, thank you.
Anyway, moving into the 5-year trails plan, we talked about this previously a few months back prior to the dinner with the board. Wanted to just kind of recircle back and make sure that we provide a recommendation and a finalization of the trails plan. So everyone provided the information, I believe, that on the trails, and that's the little tiny printout in your packet. So that one provides what I had the time that I filled this out. And so I think I may have missed Todd's, but he said that I should have had his. So, and then Sarah, I didn't receive one from you.
I'm
But
not sure if I'm getting everybody. I'm not sure if I'm getting all the emails. I confirmed that with Allison earlier this week because I was I knew that this was coming down the pipe.
Right.
And I either didn't get it or I missed it because it was the holiday week. So
Understood.
I apologize for that.
It's okay, I'm letting you know that I don't have one over here
Okay.
for you, so if we wanted to, I could retally that, but I tallied it all up, so basically, a 3 is a high, a 2 is a middle, and a 1 is a low, and then the second column is whether or not it's in your top 3, and then the third column was whether or not it's should be done this year. And so, we can definitely, I can make sure you get this, and if I wanted to, I can go retally everything, because I think what I'm looking for tonight and what we would like to do is go through the list, just touch base on what the trails are. OSAC added a couple trails, and then I also got OSAC's information. And then the larger print version is the OSAC numbers, the PROSTAC numbers, the combined ranking, and then the reorganization of what the order of the trails are. Again, the 5-year trails plan is just really prioritizing what we think are important trails in the community. And if there's funding and interest by the community or the town board, that would potentially be moved forward to be constructed. And again, that would potentially be put onto the 2020 budget or following budget. So with that being said, the process in the last couple of years has become that we go through it, recommend the PROSTAC recommendations in our ranking, and then take that to the OSAC as well for the combined ranking, and we both try to get the same ranking as a one single recommendation to the board. So tonight, if we can recommend this as a recommendation, then we go to that next step of working with OSAC to make sure that they agree with the rankings, and we both combined put forth the same recommendation.
Before we do that, I know in the previous years, we've talked about a better way of combining with OSAC, because there's been times when we had something on our lowest priority or low priority, and they had it as their highest, and ended up being as the combined, like extremely high, like that. Both, it almost seemed like that both groups really think this should be something important, when it was really just their being high and us being low.
Especially when one committee had more people than another.
Right. Well, that was the other thing.
Well, and I took a lot of that into consideration with how these numbers calculate, because in the overall, I ranked, and this is, just for everyone's knowledge, everyone's numbers came together and we have a total score of, whatever, 17 is our high, right? If you look at that. And so if it's a 17, that was our number 1. So when I take the ranking 1 through 20, OSAC also had 25 trails because they added 5 new trails that weren't matching up to ours. I took those 5 trails out, and so then ranked theirs 1 to 20 with those 5 trails being out. And therefore, we have the same number of trails, and there's a 1 through 20 on their list and a 1 through 20 on our list. And whichever ones add up to the lowest number is our number 1 combined between the 2 committees. And that's what you'll see on the second page with the final OSAC, final PROSTAC. And you can see that number 1 and number 2 for both committees are the top 2 on our map, or on our, so their number 1 was our number 2, our number 2 was their number 1. And that's all just a matter of how the numbers tally up and drag across. So, and then from there, when that compiles, then you re-rank. And so there really shouldn't be any, like they had 22 votes and we had 12 votes, and then it totaled up to a number. It was more of the number 1 trail versus number 1 trail. I don't know if everyone understands that. It's how I got through the process. And then their 5 new trails are the additional, there's a few extra sheets on the back that show little map snippets, and that shows some of the trails that they were asking to add on. And I felt that some of those trails, I think we already have somewhat covered in our original, but some of them are not. So let's just take a step back and say, let's touch base on the overall map and just where we are. There are a lot of number 1s. I did not rank all the ones in town center, and they are all under the 1. So town center is a priority, and there is 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trails within town center that are not ranked in that one is a number 1 and one is a number 5. They're all just considered town center trails.
And I think I sent that in my email to you. It's like you have a number 1, but then you have it segregated out. And the way I interpreted that, right or wrong, was I could choose all of it to be or individual parts of it to be.
Right,
And I think everybody interpreted it differently.
right. And that's where I didn't break those apart. OSAC didn't break them apart. They're all considered 7 trails underneath the number 1 category of trails. So, and then also I think that the other piece is that there is various trails within there that may or may not be done by the developer, and they're all just being tracked as making sure there's interconnectivity within town center. With that being said, I did add, and this is the contentious part that I just want to get out of the way, I did add, looking at the 2012 Comprehensive Master Plan, there is a trail shown in a location at Carvel and Wiggins and therefore it's a 7-year-old comprehensive plan that shows a trail connection. We had people for and against last week, so I put that trail on here just as there's only so many options to connect to town center. Our directive from the board was to say, how do we connect to town center? How do we do it quick? How do we do it temporary? How do we whatever? So if you look at the map, can we bring up, oh, I have the map, don't I? How do I bring up the map? There it is. There it is. Is it this one?
Is that 1F on here, Corey?
And OSAC put 1F and we put 1G. So depending on which one you look at, it's slightly different. Whoa, what's that?
Oh.
Is that the file I sent you?
Yeah. It's just that column.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I did was there was a discussion of McCaslin. There's 1H is this connection here, which somebody stated that we could cut off short right up against the house and cut over. So that's one opportunity to connect to town center. The second opportunity, if you continue along, there's no openings in the houses. There's an easement between 2 houses here. There is people for and against, and I leave it up to the board to tell me whether or not that should be there, but that is in the 2012 comprehensive plan to make a connection, and therefore it is documented and it is in the history of the town. Before that, I didn't go back how far it's been in there. I just know it was in the 2012. Then the next one of opportunity is a connection right at the western side of the Anderson, which is now, what's the development? Lanterns, Lanterns. Okay. Lanterns. So there's one potential connection that if we were able to work it in, there is the adjacency between the existing development and the new development.
But that's not feasible today for a temporary trail the way they have the cutout.
Right, and right now, all this is under construction, so the 1F and the 1B are both in the construction zone, and 1A is right up against 36, and it's their access road right now, and that is the potential road so 1B is a potential road, 1A is a potential road. There's lots of discussions there. But those are the 6 opportunities to connect from Rock Creek development to Superior Town Center. So I put them all on the list, and if we get direction from the board to not look at any of them, etc., they're there, and I know that there is pros and cons to all of them, and there is, I'm sure, a strong community input to pros and cons to those. So I just put them on the list.
So Corey, I just want to point out, whichever handout this, I don't know if this was the OSAC one, the letters are flipped.
Yep.
So we just need to be clear which.
Yeah, and so these are in the Excel file. I'll get everyone the Excel file. They added some trails, and OSAC flipped those two compared to what I had on the overall map. And so we'll continue to flip through these, and these are the orange ones at the very bottom of the list. And I just want to be able to flip through those with you guys and make sure everyone understands what OSAC stated to put on and how I see it compare on here. So anyway, all that aside, our town center connections are still our key priority from our tally of components. And then I don't know if you want to go through the rest or if anyone has any questions on them. You can print this smaller.
I got some glasses in there too.
I need a magnifying glass here.
That's exactly what they do.
The connection to Davidson Mesa was another key item. actually, let me see.
And the one that I'd just like to know a little bit more about, I guess, is it Coyote Ridge? It's that kind of circle up off to the south and west?
Yep.
Coyote Ridge is the area to the east, that open space of the South Pole. All those trails in there, which was originally developed as mountain bike trails. And right now it's largely used to walk dogs, and I won't go any further in that detail.
So if you look at the tabs in here, there's the combined, it seems like I missed, oh, there they are. The OSAC ones flipped. Those are the ones identified there. The PROSTAC list is here, and the OSAC list is here. I think I missed the two, 3A and 3B in the combined, and I'll have to look at that again and see if I need to update that. But those were new trails that they requested. And then the very last tab is, these are their additional ones that they were saying, well, can we add those? So those are two that they added, and that was added on our map already before we sent that out. And then here's some just additional ones that we'll talk about here in a little bit. Okay, so PROSTAC, we had the connection to Davidson Mesa was second. I'm gonna go to the combined, because 1, 2, connection to Davidson Mesa, add a trail at the Shan Shan property to access Meadowlark. That was our fourth, and our third was in, position 4 in the balancing it all out. Sometimes there may have been numbers that matched up with OSAC where there's 3 number 11s, and it was kind of like, well, how many, it should be done next year, or it should be in the 2012, 2020 timeline. So if it was in the extra hits on the next 2 columns, it tried to move up the list. So it's judging which one goes where. But in the big picture of things, if one's cheaper or one's more expensive and there's a certain budget, the town could pick number 4 and number 5 instead of 1, 2, and 3. So it's just a matter of, this is our recommendation. So did you want to, John, did you say you wanted to hit specific ones that you had questions on? So number 8 is, you know what, I got to go back to this.
Yeah, can you bring that area up? And maybe just give a little bit of, because I don't think John and Sarah understand a little bit of the history of what we were doing with like some of these trails, like Coyote Ridge in particular.
Right.
Yeah, I know where Coyote Ridge is.
This one's Coyote Ridge.
We love having new blood in the panel. We always forget that they don't have the history of some of the conversations that we did in a lot of these trails.
Right. So, I don't know.
So my only
So
question
Coyote
sort of is, what is it? I know there are some trails up there. What's the?
Let's give you a little bit of background on
Yeah,
Coyote Ridge.
got it.
Maybe
Go
you can
for
fill
it.
in the gaps. So Coyote Ridge was built a while back. It was originally built as a mountain bike trail. That was the original purpose. It's not the only purpose, but that was the original purpose. It's really just single track trail. It's very unimproved trail out there. Back in 2013, when we had the floods, that area was fairly damaged. And we've done several years in a row now, we've done trail maintenance to try to get it better, and it's gotten better and better. It's still not where it used to be from the trail damage, and it still needs a lot more maintenance on it. We did have outreach with the community back 2015, 16, I don't know, pick your year, I don't remember anymore. And the large outreach from the community basically said, don't make it better, or don't improve upon it.
Don't increase
improve
the
upon it.
size on
Just
it.
make the water damage fixed, but don't make it an improved area.
Well,
Leave it the way it is, essentially.
And let me just jump in too, because you'll have a hard time telling the difference between Coyote Ridge and community trails, or community.
Social trails.
Social trails,
Right.
right? Because all this up here, there's trails all over out there, right? And all that is social trail. So
And
that's all CenturyLink property.
Level 3?
It was level 3.
Oh, right,
now
CenturyLink,
CenturyLink.
right.
I worked hard to say that the right way.
I keep going the exact opposite way.
But anyway, there's lots of social trail out there. So Coyote Ridge is really this zone here, and there's a line in here, which is the property line between the town of Superior and that CenturyLink property. So that's just been one of the pieces on our maintenance to maintain and update. I will go back to, in 2016, we had an expedited trails, and at the time, as you can see here, there's a lot of trails in the main part of the community that are all done. You know, there's good interconnectivity, and there's a lot of things done. So in 2016, there was a lot of discussion about these trails along McCaslin, and really updating those and getting a kind of border along the west side. There is, you know, a new trail here, but then we were looking at the trail on the west side of McCaslin versus just on the east. There was discussion about 11. Some of these are noted. There's a column that says status next to, not that you can read it in the dark, but next to the trail. And like this was on the expedited trails. They looked at engineering it. They engineered. There was issues with grading and drainage. And so that's on the list if there's a way to potentially resolve that. There was this zone here right along the west side of McCaslin, which is now, as they updated McCaslin Road, they put a sidewalk in there, so that got a new trail. So that's kind of covered. There's still connectivity across the, where am I? Across the bridge, the creek in here, you know, that isn't addressed. So, and then, you know, you get into town center, there's lots of trails there. You know, and then you come out around Hodgkin Harrison, there's a few trail opportunities over there. There is discussion there on whether or not you can put a trail around the reservoir because it's Boulder County and part of the agreements with the reservoir and what you can and can't access out there. So that also lies back into the Zaharias property of if it were to ever be developed, is there connectivity integrated there? The trail 10 or 13, I can't remember which one it is or which one that's pointing to. There is the crusher fines out there. When US 36 bikeway path was put in, there was lots of discussion about all the trails in town lead to this. This is a connectivity on a bike to get to 36. Is this concrete? Could it be upgraded to concrete? There's a lot of discussion of whether or not, in some of our previous discussions, whether or not it's crushers or concrete or a variety. And in some of our recent discussions of whether or not we can put a concrete trail with a crusher fine adjacent to it. So that way you get the best of both and you get the bike and you get the runners that like the crushers, or even if I'm on a dirt bike and I like the crushers. So there's some of that kind of stuff. 15 was an update to a trail out there.
It's a social trail right now.
It's a social trail, yeah. And so that one's another addition of a trail in that zone on the other side of the northern side of the creek. 8A was part of the expedited trails, and that one also tied into, we were looking at upgrading Pirate Park at the time and tying in a embankment slide.
I think also on that one, there was some social trails that we were trying to change behavior on because the social trails were actually were very bad locations and it goes straight up, but it also went down and caused more runoff, caused more damage when you got rains. So this was to try to change behaviors and put a trail there.
More of a zigzag across, and we did have some engagement on that. And you know, there was a couple people against it just on the, is it going to have views up in and down into my yard? We went through it. Some of them
I think we alleviated most of those because
that, yeah, once we talked through where it was
further back and you had a little bit of, you were lower, not sitting on the top.
So anyway, there's still, you know, some additional discussion there. And then a lot of these over here, the 6A, 14.
14 was also a little bit controversial. Same reasons that we're seeing controversial for the
at
one
the
on cul-de-sac today.
At the Carvel up here, this one.
2 houses don't want additional.
But this was, there's a lot of discussion about these trails when we talked about having a trail in McCaslin on the southern half of town, similar to what's on the northern half of town. There was also Candelas, right? It had, they've since put in.
Yeah, it's Calmonte.
Calamonte.
Candelas is the Rocky Flats.
The Rocky Flats one.
Oh, man. Too many development names. But anyway, they've since put in a lot of the trails in here. So there was, you know, a little trail in here. We knew the developer eventually would put that one in, but we have to connect from there. There's a picnic table and some crusher fine trails in this zone right here today. But the connectivity from there goes across this ravine. And that ravine, to get the trail out there, would have to create a retaining wall and an embankment, which is like $1 million trail. And therefore, is there a way to even pull out onto the road and come back? Is there a way to build a portion of it? This little segment 6 would tie into the current trails that are out there already by Fire Station Park. So, and then 14, we tried to break them out as different numbers. So 6 being along here, and 14 being the one that ties from Wildflower. As we develop Wildflower, there's connectivity over to Torrey's. And then from Torrey's, it's a question of, can we get through that easement and open space in there? And there's a very wide swath between houses. There's some, again, for and against. But one of the things that in the 2016 expedited trails, when they engineered this one, they found that there's a lot of groundwater in this zone, and that the trail, even if you were to put it in, you'd have to elevate it to an extent, and you can't really just set it down because of the groundwater and potentially washout. So there is a few of these trails that have been designed and understood what it takes, and there's a little bit better number on what those would be. And so that's where I tried to identify the 2016 expedited trails. Some of them have been taken care of or modified slightly. But that's really, in the 2016, we really focused on the trail connectivity along McCaslin as the kind of main corridor to tie everything together. And there was discussions even at that time when we were looking at this trail, whether or not was that part of the capital improvement budget where they did the roadway and did the sidewalk at the same time. Down here, the roadways are in, and it's just, can we get a trail? So I don't know if I hit everything.
Yep, no, everything, just one. I thought we made a recommendation a meeting or two ago to consider hard surface for some of the trails in the.
That was
this one right here.
Yep.
And I didn't put it on the list. Yes. So
yeah,
that was one I should have.
That little piece of it, I tasked manager Magley to sort of look at it, since we're paving the Honey Creek parking lot already this summer as part of the Colton redo. We might be able to do that under the same contract, but they're going to look at it and let us know.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't put that in. Yeah. I should at least put it on here as another item, and I just totally missed it.
No problem. That's why you have other people.
That's why That's why.
And for completeness, 17, 18, and 19, those were the Boulder County ones that they've expressed interest that they don't want to really pursue those, the red ones.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Every year, we still say, we would like to do this if you guys are interested, and they come back and say, thank you, but no thank you, but we still propose that. I did, on the Davidson Mason underpass, remind me on that one, that's still Boulder County, whether they got a light there or not, and it didn't make sense about putting the trail until we got a light there for people to be able to cross Marshall there.
Well, I guess that comes back to the dash line that we have there currently is the Dr. Cog, and it's almost done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still on the list, but it's almost done. And if you look at the additional add-ons that OSAC put in at the very end, there was one of their trails on the list. I can't find it right now. Where is it? Anyway, one of the trails on their list was actually to do a little connection, like right at the front end of that, from the park and ride area to that trail. And they were saying that that's actually getting worked through anyway. So I think that's one of the 5 that was on their list that should be resolved. But yeah, the big discussions on this one was the connectivity here and getting across here or at 76th. And 76th, whether or not we had put in a light or something, because it is a 40-mile-an-hour zone right up to there, and then the speed goes
And
down.
I think it's a 50 zone, right, where the underpass comes out, and it slows down to 40 down at the 76.
But when the underpass comes out, the bike path's right there, so you don't have to get.
Somehow you have to get over.
Well, when the underpass was
Okay,
first
so
put
you'd have to
in,
drive all the way to the you'd have to ride your bike all the way to the Whole Foods parking lot to get over.
Right.
or potentially at 76, you can come across now. It's just a matter of where you protect it to get across. And when the trail first got put in, there was nothing. There was no trails to get to. It just spilled out right onto the road. And so that was the biggest concern at the time. And there was also lots of connectivity discussions between Marshall Mesa and out to the open space trails to the west. And that is, if you look at, there is a couple additional sketches here from the second page, that page right there, is a couple of these orange ones down here. And they were talking about, OSAC was talking about trail connectivity to that. I can't remember the trail out there right now, and I can't read it.
Is that the ditch trail?
Community Ditch Trail. Davidson Mesa to Singletree. So anyway, there was a couple of these in here that tied that together. So I'm not really going through what they're ranked as. I'm just basically making sure you understand what all the trails are.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for that.
So, and then a couple other ones that I just want to point out. OSAC and we talked about this, I don't know, before I sent out the list, and that one was on there. That was a new one to say connection from across to Community Park without going all the way down to Safeway. But again, how feasible is that? Is there an opportunity there? It's just a potential connectivity.
And down that big hill or something.
Yeah,
There's
exactly. And there's some drainage. And
There's a ditch, I think.
there's all kinds of stuff in there. So again, there was somebody brought forth the recommendation that they would love to have a connectivity there. Just put it on the list. Not
Yeah, my
saying
kids
that
keep trying to go
works.
that way and they always come back and go around.
Right. So not saying it totally always works, but we put it on there just to track it and we can see.
And at the end of the day, maybe a bridge would work. It doesn't necessarily have to be, a paved or crusher fine trail, but
Right.
Given the ditch and the drainage and all that, it might have to be something different.
Right.
And Neil, question I have for you, it's not quite a trail, but it uses the same purpose. I attended 2 weeks ago a meeting with, I don't remember which group it was, but they're talking about potentially with the work that they're going to do in Colton, potentially putting a crosswalk somewhere here as well too, because people are basically making almost a social trail across the street here, and they're looking at potentially putting a crosswalk there to help safely get them across, as opposed to having to come all the way down to Rock Creek or up to Rock Creek.
That's absolutely right. The TSC talked about that.
I think
brought it up.
right.
Yeah, we brought it up at the session over the summit.
Yep.
To narrow down on the exact spot. But since we are tearing and replacing Colton, the cost of doing this right now is relatively inexpensive. When our consultant went out there, a lot of the rocks on that median at that spot are really disturbed because everybody's crossing right there. So far, the feedback from the community is positive. I think Alex has to nail that down, or maybe already has, on the exact placement. But the plan there is much like we have on Rock Creek Parkway, on the east side of Safeway, getting across the Bell Flatirons. We put in that pedestrian flasher crossing over there. This will be the same thing. It'll be a pedestrian flasher with the concrete, sort of refuge in the center, so that folks can take a pause and then continue across.
Yep.
This is the current flasher, and this is where the proposed one would be right here.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's already, coming down from the summit, there's a couple of different social trails that spill out into it. And then in the median, it's obvious that lots of people have been crossing there. And what we also heard at that session is a lot of kids are using that to get over to the turf field. It's not just people trying to get to Safeway, but it's a lot of kids up in that neighborhood. They're not going to walk, 2 blocks in opposite directions just to come back to the same spot.
And the reason why I bring that up in this one, just because the idea was that, from my understanding, was that because here's a light, so you could cross over the light and hit this trail. But it seems like that there's actually more usage down here, so I don't know how much this trail would make sense if we're putting this in and that gets more usage, because then they're going to be coming over this way anyways. I was just trying to include that.
That's a good point.
Okay. Just touching base on a couple other ones. There is, on the list was a trail connection over here, and let's see, that's 9 and 11. Just want to point those two out so you know where they are, but around the reservoir, as well as up here. And then how do I get to the tab? Oh, that's in the Excel file. In the Excel file, I wanted to touch base on the OSAC list of these down at the bottom here that they added as new trails. And when you go through this, really these are the ones to town center, which are already captured in our list. This one right here is the connection at the Marshall Mesa and the underpass. This was a bunch of trails that were looked at previously, and I think it's more of just keeping it on the list because this is out in, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Louisville and Boulder County right across the road in here, and depending on how far you go out, that's when you get into the Boulder County, because there's a Louisville treatment plant or something right in here. So how that connectivity works, we can recommend things, but it's really out of our hands, and that's where we put forth that recommendation to Boulder County. And as we said, with these 3 gray trails on here, we continue to have them as red on our list because Boulder County continues to reject them as not trails that they want to install. But it's always, we'd love to potentially have a little bit more trail system out in that western open space west of Colton. So anyway, this is one of their pieces that they put in as a snippet. It's kind of off our map, off to the left, to the west. And then this one right here is, again, on 36 and 76. 76 has a bike lane to a point, and so it's a little less clear when you hit this zone. And then they were looking at, is there another way to connect to that single track area out there? And so the first image we looked at was up here. This one's looking at down here, and there is some open space to the north of that. So again, these are kind of in the open space zone, but they were part of that orange list that they added. 20 we already talked about, and that one we had on our list as well. This one is their 21, which I felt like we had on here with the, this is right along McCaslin. You can kind of see the cul-de-sac or the roundabout here into town center, kind of faintly. So they've put this on the list as OSAC, but I feel we have a trail right along the western side of McCaslin now, as well as the interaction with the circle and how this development of Rogers Farm gets in here. We still have this crossing on our numbers because that's the crossing across to Ostie. Yeah, I was going to say Crossville.
Well, and as a committee, we have talked about that trail, and we all kind of agreed with what you said, that there already is one along the McCaslin right there, so it didn't need to be a parallel one. That's why we never really included it previously, because. And
not only that, this is part of that development of Rogers Farm, and now we can see that roads are starting to take form out there. And so it's really this connection is the critical, but it looks like they're actually adding in all the way through somehow. I mean, it's kind of in roads. So I'm not really sure what this is, but I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention that this is one of the diagrams they put up. And then from here, I think it also ties.
While we're there, can I ask about the roundabout? Just
this right here?
As a side note.
Yep.
What do you do when you're riding your bike and need to go through the
They just changed it. So I just rode that 2 days ago. They just changed the signage on that, okay? So, and most of the roundabouts, I actually like what they did. The reason why I have good feelings about this. So on the other 2 roundabouts, the one on 88th and the one at Colton, the bike lane ends, and then it merges onto a sidewalk, and it looks like you're supposed to merge onto the sidewalk and then merge off the sidewalk right after the roundabout, because that's the way it does, because the bike lane ends. Right there at that roundabout, 2 weeks ago, I would have told you the same thing, but 2 days ago, I think it was Saturday when I wrote it, 3 days, whatever it was, they actually put those green bike lane things to show that the bike merges, because there's 2 lanes there.
Yep.
It merges into the right lane that they want you to do, and they want you to go around. So there actually is now road signage to follow that around that I just saw the other day. I'm very happy that they put that on there.
It's been out there for a little while now. The little green cycling men is becoming the universal.
2 times ago I rode it, wasn't there this last time I was there.
Yeah,
so
no,
in between those two.
I think it's kind of the move to do more of that around,
right.
especially
because it does get confusing. Do I go on the sidewalk or do I not go on the sidewalk? Do I take the road or not take the road?
So continuing forward, so the next one that OSAC put on there, there's this roadway bed on the southern side of Rogers Farm. If you blow it up here, there's the interconnectivity of the trails here, and they look like they put a line from the McCaslin to the existing. To me, I question this because I think that this is going to be an abandoned roadway bed. It looks like with the new development of Rogers that they won't even use this road. And therefore, to me, it's a question of, can we utilize that roadway for a bike path? But again, it comes down to what's the final development out there, and, what can we integrate a trail somewhere? So
And that's going up to Shan Shan, right?
Shan Shan is way over here,
Right, but
but yes, there is a trail, but
At least to the
there is a
Mayhoff or
trail
whatever that name of the
here
trail.
that kind of goes up and around too right now.
And it's always been
It's kind of
used as like an emergency access road. But yeah, you guys are right that it kind of leads through the Shan Shan property historically.
Yep. And then I think these are more of the, like this one here, this is Trail 11 on our map. But there is a connectivity that they put in on the southern side of the pond up there, which the red is existing and the blue, I believe, is existing.
Blue's
So,
existing.
so therefore, it's really that trail there. Could we cut that in? Would that be something we want? The red is already proposed. So it's just a matter of, to me, I was like, it's kind of overlap a little bit, but there's a new trail in there too. So I just wanted to go through and make sure everyone kind of understood, oh, here's the edge of the Dr. Cog to, I don't know what business is over there right now. Ethan Allen is on that corner. Oh, they're on the they're up over here.
Thank you. The sun is going down. I'm going to try and get home alive.
Okay.
Good luck. I'll let you know how it
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your education on the bike trails.
Thank you.
By the way, a shameless plug, if you go up to number 20, I was riding on that area yesterday with my son, and we ran across the Three Elk, and it was just an amazing experience for him for his first time really mountain biking out there, to come across Three Elk just hanging out.
Oh, those elk have been out there for months.
Oh, they've been out there for a while, but they were right there by the trail, so it was really cool, to interact with them and to understand, well, what do you do when you're out here and you come across them,
So the last one that they had on their list, and I just wanted to go through it so everyone understands the trails that OSAC has been looking at, and a lot of these, to me, come into the open space to the west, which is great. So this trail is basically along the creek bed all the way out, and again, this kind of comes into some of those, where do you connect, but I'm not really even sure how you cut that one in, and all the geotechnical, or the issues that we had with the trail when they redid Parks 1 and 2 over here. Right here is the roundabout.
Oh, okay, got it.
We're sitting right there. So that trail kind of stops at the park here, but they're saying, is there a potential to connect all the way out and get more of a waterfront creek path?
And one of the things just to be cognizant of, when we went to Boulder County regarding the trailhead, the new trailhead on the Shan Shan property, Boulder County was very specific about, limiting the amounts of multiple connectivities in small areas.
Small segments and stuff.
And so that's just something for the group to know.
Well, and the reason I really wanted to go through this is there's a lot of trail potential to the west in the open space. Typically, we do put a Boulder County trails and open space recommendation together. I probably had that on the list for third quarter, and I haven't brought it up yet because I really wanted to get through recommendation of the trails we have, the amenities we have, and then touch base on this because it's kind of outside a little bit. But they proposed, OSAC has looked at some various trails, and I don't know if I agree with all of them, but there is some new trails there. So my personal opinion, don't use it as a guide.
The observation that I noticed from looking at these was that they're trying to create loops, because either you have to do an out and back, which has its own issues if you do that. So they're trying to create little loops, bigger loops, that people can kind of do these loops, and just kind of keep going all around without an out and back. That's kind of the general idea I got, which has pluses and minuses.
Right. But I mean, to me, I really like this one, and I know that's why, it's on the 2016 Expedited Trails, the interconnectivity of the ridge and connectivity to Key. But this one, it's like you can see a loop right there.
Yeah.
So that one, I'm like, eh. But again, what's the developer, and so can we do these? So anyway, I just wanted to go through those. Overall, the combined scores really tally up, and it's very similar. I didn't go through which one's each number, but I feel you can touch base on that if we want to, we can.
Can we go back to the town connectivity? So I'm just clear, like these three through the Lantern community, these are just potentials?
Right.
These are not, we've already worked with the developer and, okay.
Well, let me define which ones are for sure. My understanding, let's see if I can, which one's the zoom button? There it is. So we have, in working with the developer, there was an existing trail. So the southern trail down here is supposed to go back in.
Okay.
The roadway through to 1B is supposed to go in. We don't know where it goes when it gets to the northern side. And we don't know if that's a road or a trail or what. And then that's where also 1A, they've stated that that is a, I believe my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a fire access road that this developer is putting in at this time because they need a fire access from two sides. So that is what they're putting in today. It was like another $1 million or something during the discussions that they would put in a 2-lane road if the town wanted to put up some money.
Right.
That's my recollection of it. So there are 3 trails. Potentially this would be a trail that connects in, but it doesn't go across. So that's where the 1A and that interconnectivity on the western side of 36. And then there are other development plans in here, which I believe carry 1A through from what we saw when we met with Ranch Capital. And the only one that's really unsure is this 1F.
Right, that was my question, is 1F is that's a potential, not a given?
It's a potential, not a given on what's approved by the FDP.
Can I also ask about 1C? Is that confirmed to go to Tract H?
Do you want to answer?
Yeah, I'll start with 1F.
First?
So 1F was not in the FDP that Lantern submitted. And given, and I think Dan sent some pictures out, which I think anyone who goes out there would recognize, given the way that BCN has sort of chewed up the land over there, we need to do some work with widening that, because otherwise it's a long fall down onto what'll be houses. I think it's a fantastic location for a connection, but we got to get working on advocating for that one. 1C, I don't think we've seen that in any FDPs either yet.
I'll say when we did meet with them, it wasn't in a final FDP, but there was concepts that showed 1C connectivity to Tract H.
Yep. No, and I
think
think
did not show it past Tract H.
Right. No, I think Ranch Capital absolutely wants to continue the connectivity movement. Just to, it helps them to. It's not so much about moving people out of downtown into the rest of the Superior. It's about bringing people from the rest of Superior into downtown. So they want to continue to make sure that they're as well connected as they can be. You know, I think 1C and 1F are very easy ways to do that. 1G, you know, like you said, is in the master plan. It's an opportunity. 1H, again, you know, it's another opportunity as well.
And if I recall correctly, 1C had a couple different options depending on which development they went with of the final triangular shapes on each side.
Again, like I live on that section of town, so that's the foot traffic that I'm used to, and I just think that 1F would get a lot more utilized. I'm not discouraging 1G, but 1F would get a lot more foot traffic because of just the density of the housing.
I can actually, I mean, I live over there as well. I completely agree. I think, you know, I think more connectivity across there is great. How we do it, I think we may have some challenges with 1F, but the best we can do is continue. You rank this high and start pushing this one as much as possible, because there's probably some things we can get started on now. And I think this goes back to what Kevin, Trustee Ryan had said. You know, in hindsight, this would have been, 1F would have been a perfect one to advocate for as a temporary trail during the construction, because we don't know how long Lanterns is going to take to develop. So, you know, it's anyone's guess on 1B, when 1B could even appear. You know, so that in that interim, how do we connect down in that direction?
So in our rankings, just to let everyone know, we did internally rank, people did put numbers on these 1A through F. as a combined, the one is still our number one priority, the town center connectivity, but it doesn't break out which one's number one, number two, number three. You could take our numbers and understand which one's 1, 2, and 3 of those, but I don't know, I didn't specifically try to break them apart, and I don't know if anyone else voted to try and break them differently, or if it's just they're all part of number one and they're all 3s or they're all 2s. So, but this map to me shows all the connectivity you can do, the potentials.
Mhm.
Not saying they are final by any means. It's just potentials. So with that, I mean, we've pretty much gone through them all. I don't know if anyone wants to be more specific on what the ranking is specifically. Other than that, I mean, I feel like the rankings of them are very close to what we've had. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I can read again. But if you look down, from the overall combined, town center is the developer, the Dr. Cog is the county, and that is almost done. Ad Trail at the Shan property, it's
like a teacher.
Boulder County Trails in 2019 construction. So there's some trails coming there. So there's a little bit of status. I tried to just give what I know of, what the, some of them were in the 2016 and are engineered, but there's a cost issue, and, we still recommend that trail, but at what point do we have enough funding to actually move forward with it? So again, this is, as Ron said previously, if you guys remember, that the amenities and trails list is if we have the money and the town can fund these are what we would like to see first. And if they do have the money, it may not be the number 1 or number 2 on the list. It may just be which one is affordable at the top. So,
Highest priority trail that we can afford with money.
right. So with that, I mean, if we are okay with this.
I'm good with the trails and everything we've gone over, and you're going to send out the rankings so I can look at it.
Yeah, I'll
at
send
my
it out
leisure
again.
on my
Because
fine Macintosh.
I think my wife has 2 of those things, and yeah. Anyway, they're good. They're good. But I would say if we can recommend this to move forward, and then we can work with OSAC just to make sure if they have any that they disagree with or want to move up or down. And again, we can look through that list, and if you guys have any other, we can touch base on those.
And also, even in the past where there's been an A and a B, I don't know if you guys recall, but in prior years, when there's a difference in opinion between the 2 committees, there's been an A and a B or an A and an A really, where the 2 committees are so close, but these 2 trails kind of rank with the same number, and we've kind of had those in the same spot also, like especially for the Boulder County recommendation, which will be kind of referring to this, at the same.
So, and just from just going through the OSAC and PROSTAC rankings, our numbers are pretty close in the lower digits through like item 7, item 8, 9. It's like 10 and 11. We have a high one, they have a low one. They have a high one, we have a low one. And the numbers are somewhat close this year.
This is as close as I've seen it.
Yeah.
And again, I put all the trail ones at the bottom, and then the orange ones that were new ones at the bottom as well. And I ranked those were their kind of numbers that they had, and that went through their priority of those that were not ranked by us. So, but again, I felt like a lot of those were out in the open space and they weren't all in the in-town area. But again, they should still be considered. So
I make a motion that we approve the combined OSAC PROSTAC 5-year trail plan rankings for 2019.
And I'll second.
Seconded by John. Perfect. Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Motion passes. So with that, and I will send this out so that everyone has the Excel file as well. I mean, I just kind of crammed all the numbers last night. and I'm sorry if you didn't get it.
No, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm getting them or if I'm missing them, but.
And the only thing I could tell from our end is like you show on the list in the group email. So I'm not sure, but you could call me and we could work on it together.
Well, I know I got the email from you today.
Yeah, no, I get the group emails.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I missed it, but
It came like right before the 4th of July weekend, right?
I sent one out the 3rd and one out like the 10th.
Yeah.
I don't know. I sent one out as soon as I could, and then I sent out another one
no,
because
when
there
I
was the
saw yours
amenities and the trails.
today, then I went back and I saw the string, and then I went back to my emails and I searched Corey to see if I had
Mhm.
previous ones, and I didn't, and I'm like, I don't know, just.
Maybe you just blocked me.
I think he's a, he may be
Maybe
on
I,
our-
well, you know what,
wrong
I
with
didn't,
that?
I didn't check my spam. That's true, I
Could be a
didn't
spam.
check my
Yeah, you've
spam,
already
so
done
maybe
it.
that's
You
where I
really
need to check.
No, I'm kidding.
Make him sing it too.
All right, well, I appreciate everyone on that one. So let's go to the amenities now. And very similar to the last one, the only, I have a problem with the amenities and the fact that it didn't auto sort for me to sort number 1 through. And so therefore, the numbers are on the left. I couldn't get it to sort and I stopped trying this morning and said, I'm sending it and print it. So.
Well, the top 3 are all pretty high up there, so.
Well, but it's really not. So the vision plan is number 1.
Right.
But number 2 is the community center. Number 3 is still an indoor pool. Number 4 is pickleball courts.
Yeah.
Number 5 is indoor recreation. Number 6 is multipurpose. 7 was natural climbing features in parks.
Yeah.
Where's 8? 8 was
Basketball
basketball
hoops.
hoops. So as you can see, they shift around. And then number 9 was a new item that we put on there was, say, top 3 trails on the 5-year trail plan. So that way we kind of tie the amenities back to the trail plan as well. So that one was a new item in there. And I left, as you can see, I left the news on there, and some of them are getting old. But I don't know. That was the top 9. I don't even know where the 10 is. 10, outdoor amphitheater.
Hmm.
And 11 is the Hodgkin-Harrison Reservoir viewing area. So, and some of these, there was potential for them to be installed in the Superior Town Center parks. And so there was a little bit of a check on some of those, whether or not that will continue to follow through. That doesn't always mean it will, but that's also where we usually get to review the parks before they finalize them. We've reviewed the original concept plans for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plans in the past, but they're not final development plans either. So.
And I really thought Sledding Hill was brilliant, but I know it's farther down on the.
Isn't it already
on the
there?
list.
It's number 18 on
Yeah.
there.
There's a social sledding hill, so if you make it.
Yeah, depending, I think that would be the other thing, just like we've talked about with the Zone 3. I'm going to refer to it as Zone 3 instead of Riverbend. I'm going to change that name on there. But just like we talked about with that, enhancements is another thing instead of just saying a sledding hill. So we can
Right.
enhance the hills that are used for sledding by putting in some natural stairs, something to make it easier to get up and down it, that kind of thing. So,
Okay.
and maybe, integrated jumps too, But anyway, there are ways to enhance the areas as well, and so those are other opportunities that we have for amenities.
Well, even silly little things like the hill at El Dorado, right? The years when they mow that late in the fall, it makes a huge difference to the kids, right? So
Right.
it can be small things.
And then just to clarify, the list, we tried to move everything up from this below the line to above the line. The below the line, there for a while, we had some non-voting maintenance items and partnership and concept ideas, but really it was the non-voting things were, working with the Boulder Valley School District to upgrade, and they've done some changes to some of their parks and fields because it's not really town controlled, and the baseball field at El Dorado was in not the best shape, but yet, is there a way to work with them on improvements to that? And I think that in the last year, they've redone the baseball field out there. So, and then they put a track in around out there. And so there's some opportunities there. And then one of the other things we were talking about was, is there a way to partner with Autry at some point and utilize the pond for more access and, to get down. But I think that that's kind of part of the community over there to get to it, but, whether or not that is expanded past that. So those are just some of the below the line items there that some people ranked, others didn't. So, but they're kind of below the big black line, and I didn't change the screen to, oops.
So is it our goal then to discuss the differences in the rankings, or?
Well, the key would be whatever you want to discuss, but from an amenities standpoint, we've added some amenities. We've re-ranked amenities. Do we feel that the order is correct? Do you feel that there is something that we missed that we want to review again?
I think the overall goal, what you're trying to say, is that we're trying to get a approved amenities list for 2019, and here's the combined rankings. So if you want to discuss anything of it before we vote on this list tonight, or if we need to delay it based on discussions we have. I think that's what we're trying to go with, right?
Right. I don't know why. It won't let me sort them.
You probably have it sorted by something else that's overriding it. That's usually what happens.
I think you have your auto filter on.
I think you should tell Corbett there's no way he can figure out how to sort it.
Challenge.
Anyway,
Well-
no matter what, that's the only.
By the way, enable editing and we'll let you.
Well, no, I've tried on my computer when I edited it the first time.
So if it's already sorted in another area, sometimes it won't let
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, because they're like attached, but I guess there's just a few things that really stand out to me.
Look for
The main
those
one
warnings.
being the updating of the master plan went from number 24 to number 1. That's like
Big change.
big difference. And so I think it's worth our time either tonight or maybe at the next meeting to discuss what that means in terms of how we would want to go after that.
Well, and if you recall in the previous couple meetings, because we did this once early in like January, February, March, somewhere in that time frame. And at the time, we were kind of reviewing how do we move forward as a committee and where are we going? And the PROSTAC or Post Master Plan or Comprehensive Plan comes down to what's our real direction? How do we approve things? How do we know where amenities go until we do something that really gives us a guide? And that's why a lot of our discussions lately have been about vision plan and
Yep.
what are we really trying to achieve? So, having the list of amenities is great, but if we don't have a location to put them or not sure, that's why I think it went from down at the bottom, because it was something we were always kind of in the background
Yeah.
updating, to like, hey, this is getting most important for the committee.
Right.
Or what I recall of the discussions, the committee's view was that it would really help guide us if we had that updated.
All right, yeah, I fully concur, and I was part of the discussions as well. I guess my
Right.
question to the group is, what does that mean for our activities for the rest of the year now that we feel like this is number 1 versus something that really was in the back burner in the past for us?
I personally don't think this guides the activities for the year. This would guide a lot of what I see, this guides our, what do we want to do next year? Because our activities for the year has already been set and already been approved by the town. So this will guide when we create our plan for next year. How do we want to, we're going to use this as a tool. We're going to use the 5-year trails plan as a tool. We're going to use all these things as tools to set our work plan for next year. And I think that's personally what I use.
And I hate to say it, but you're giving me like a softball. I just gotta tee this up.
Go ahead.
So the whole point of tonight was really talking about the trails plan, the amenities plan. That's all potential future opportunities for the town to add amenities and improvements to the town. Town 15 was a big one that we want to talk about, and then the 2020 budget of where do we really want to go in the next year and what would help guide us. Well,
Yeah.
Sorry, did I set that up too much?
No.
I feel like the master plan or visioning, some sort of vision directive, whether it's an entire comprehensive, some sort of visioning directive would help guide all these. And we have them as amenity options and opportunities, but I think it would also help guide the budget recommendations for the years to come based on just understanding an overall vision for the town, and where, if you want to add or you have extra money and you get a lot of push for pickleball, is pickleball a location in the right spot? Does it work with the community? Does it work with the vision for the development of the community to add it in that spot and add 4 courts and then 8 courts or whatever? So those are the type of things that it all kind of ties together.
I fully agree.
So with,
I'm excited to see indoor pool make it to the top of the list. And I didn't even vote on this, so I didn't even skew the numbers, so that's just my 2 cents.
yeah. Well, and I think the other thing is that just from my perspective and looking at the numbers and where it is, I think there's still an interest in the community for indoor recreation, indoor community, indoor pool, some of those things. And I mean, I've still continued to hear about it, even though we didn't move forward with the impact sports combination and some of the other things, but there is other opportunities, and there may be a building over by Safeway somewhere that has some opportunities as well. So since we didn't get our rec center at Town 15, maybe there's other opportunities. But again, there's still, for me, it comes down to this last year, I feel like I've been more, what is the overall goal and what are the overall amenities versus what are the key hot items on our work plan for the year. I want to know the big picture and where we're headed with that. And if there's something else, item 15 goes hot, that's fine. We can work on that in the next year, and we can do budget recommendations or community input on it and push things forward. But I don't know. Plus, I love, that's the other thing. I love like the Chili Fest and 4th of July, because talking to the community gives us more input onto, am I missing something on here? And it's one of my favorite questions to ask the community when they're at the tent is, are you missing anything? And they're like, usually it's no, there's such amazing trails and outdoor parks and variety of parks. We did hear in one of the community comments recently, like splash pads are missing. But I'm hoping that Town Center will provide a splash pad in that park that they've proposed. So sometimes you just gotta wait.
Yep.
Corbett fixed it?
Wow.
I like that.
You're smart.
So now we can see him in the right order?
Save it.
Oh my gosh, please save that. That's the button. Sweet.
Challenges.
All right, well, just to run down them really quick, just to make sure we're all understanding. It's a vision plan, a comprehensive plan, a master plan of some sort, whatever you want to call that, is what I think that we are saying would be our number one. Community center, indoor pool, pickleball, indoor recreation, multipurpose fields, which hopefully we get at Town Center. Well, Park 2, a very large turf one.
So another turf field somewhere in the.
So let me go to, do we still have the map open? Trails map. So in Town Center, there is Park 1 and Park 2. And Park 2, this is supposed to be a very large rugby size, soccer size field with lights. Very similar to.
No markings.
Very similar. What was the Williams Field?
Yeah.
Very similar to Williams Field with all the markings, as many as possible.
I just remember all the conversations we had about that.
Because the Williams Field gets good usage, right? It's-
Right, and
it's
so
great
that's the second park over closer to 36, and
But
there
it was
is,
a natural field, not a turf field, right?
I can't
That
remember.
is correct.
I'm
It
pretty
is?
sure it was a natural field, not a turf field.
That is correct.
I couldn't remember.
The
It was a
Williams-
large field.
It's at AstroTurf Field behind Safeway.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know that,
Yep.
Sorry, we use a lot of these technical terms, what they're called, and everybody just calls it turf field behind Safeway.
Yeah.
You're like, don't you know where Circle Park is?
Yeah. That the one I do.
Well, yeah. So when, we throw out names of parks, it took me a long time. I was like,
Well,
can somebody describe that again? You
We
pull
still
up a
say
map?
Richardson's, we say Sanchan
Shan and Anderson
and Anderson. And
yeah. Anyway, okay, so continuing down the list real quick, just to go through multi-purpose, then we have natural climbing feature, basketball hoops, top 3 trails, amphitheater, viewing area over at HHR.
you know what HHR is?
Is that the top of the hill?
That's the
Hodgson
reservoir.
Harris.
That's the
Hodgson,
Hodgson
yeah.
Harrison Reservoir, Hodgson Harris Reservoir.
I'm going to get some glasses. I think I'm.
Sarah, it won't take you
Youth baseball field. What's that one? Small dog park,
Yep.
which is a new one that was requested
By the way,
previously.
Yeah.
there was 2 that are almost the same, because
Did I miss it?
on the list, and I voted on one and not the other one. One said additional dogs park area.
I thought it was an agility course.
Agility
No,
course.
there's an agility one, but there was something else that I said, something about additional dog park, and then the one said small dog.
Yeah, number 16 is like an off-leash dog area.
Oh, where's 16?
I should have put all the dog ones together for
Oh.
you.
So it was confusing of whether they were the same or not, so I only voted for the one that was more defined.
And if there is an agility course still in there, that's been installed at
Yep.
the, yeah.
We saw that, we were there right before the last meeting.
So there it is, right there, agility course.
But
Way down
wasn't
at
the
bottom.
small dog park potentially going to be part of the existing dog park?
Well, and the small dog park is like for 20 pound and under
Yeah.
or something, and
Like
whether
a
or not it was
separate-
tied to an existing location or whether it's a new location, we didn't specify. Because that's the other thing on the amenities list, it's more of what are the amenities that we want in town, what are we missing? Not necessarily always tying it to a location.
Right.
But if we had a vision plan that tied it to locations that you know where you could build things and where you shouldn't build things, that's kind of that next layer of potentials. So I guess that hit the top 5, top 10 or so.
Can I ask a question? Because one of the things that flipped in the opposite direction was tennis courts went from number 6 to number 17. Is that based on, the feedback has been light for tennis courts and has been significantly greater for pickleball? I'm just curious because
I
it's
think-
mixed from what I've
I'll say
heard.
from my perspective, from being a couple of years, we've changed members. We've had a drastic change in members compared to what we had before. I mean, we've had, since the last time we voted, we have, at least 2 or 3 new members? And not only 2 or 3 new ones, but we lost other ones. So voting's gonna jump around back and forth. And I know there was one member who was very, very strong advocate who would increase the rankings of tennis courts.
But I also view that we've talked a lot about pickleball in
Yeah.
open community comments, and in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of push for pickleball and stating the pickleball compared to tennis comparison. And just, for me personally, it was more of I feel that there is maybe it's just the community outreach is telling us more about pickleball than tennis right now.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with the ranking. It's just, relative to last year's rank,
Yeah.
it's the only other one that really changed, other than the PROST
I will
update.
say personally
That went the opposite direction.
Right.
This one fell down.
I personally rate pickleball a little higher this year than I did last year because of that. Not just because of the outreach, but because I see how much, like, my son goes and plays basketball now. It's taken over the courts here, and there's been a lot more conversations about it. So it's not only being in people's minds, but it's also starting to impact other things. And so that actually weighted, well, maybe we do need to solve this because they're trying to find spaces wherever they can, which
Right.
may impact other things.
Mhm. Good, thanks.
And I would also say I personally see some tennis courts that don't seem to be all that utilized in the area,
Yeah.
which made me put pickleball higher.
Depends on
That's-
depends
no,
on who you ask.
Well, I don't need to ask anybody. I mean, I see what I see, but, and I played a ton of tennis in the past, but I do think pickleball's a nice family thing, and it would be fun to have an area to do that, so was my reasoning.
Okay. Well, the one thing I see out of the whole list for sure is to remove the agility course for dogs, just as a one item, housekeeping item. So whether or not we approve this and move it forward. I don't know, Susan, with just some of the early comments, if you think we want to wait to discuss with Ron and Todd and,
I don't, my perspective is the rankings kind of speak for themselves, but what do others think? Do we feel like we need additional input? I feel like the rankings speak for themselves myself.
I personally think that we have the information, and I'm ready to vote on it.
I just
Concur.
so do we have a motion?
I move that we accept the rankings as proposed.
I second.
I'm gonna get my things up.
Does that match what your last proposition? So motion and seconded, John and Susan.
Yeah. Well, could you restate the motion, John? How do you
Copy
word
the
it?
previous one and state.
Motion to approve, motion to approve PROSTAC's amenities rankings for 2019.
Yeah, that's how eloquently I said it, yes, absolutely.
It's the exact same wording, except for the 5-year went out and the amenities went in. All right, so any discussion?
No.
Go for it.
Sorry, I'm new to this. So can the indoor pool also be / like pop a top on the existing pool? Or is that totally different?
Wow. You just, wow. Crack it open.
Here's another history lesson.
Before I address that one, I'm going to say the one discussion item that I want to make sure, the change to the motion, I would like to just state that we strike the agility course,
Yep.
Yes.
just as a clarifier.
You don't have to
But-
educate me now. You can
So,
educate
well,
me after the
I
meeting.
guess it comes down to indoor pool is a request, right? And it's an amenity. So whether that's a pop the top or build a new, it's an amenity that we're asking for is the indoor
Okay.
pool, right?
All right.
Because I think that there is at least 3 different ways to potentially do a pool, whether it's another outside source brings in a pool, whether we put a roof on a bubble on the north pool, which has been discussed, or whether it's a totally new partnership. You know, we've went through those in the last 3 years, and so just knowing that it's still on the list, it's still in the forefront of people's minds that we're hearing from, you know, I think that's the key with this list. And I guess it comes back to some of Dan's discussions in the last meeting where, you know, really if there's certain advocates that are really strong for it and it still continues to come up, that gets in front of the board more, it gets in front of us more, and therefore hopefully gets a movement amongst the community and a grassroots movement to say, can we develop something more? So at this point, I'd say it's just something on the list.
Okay.
Huh. So, but anyway, that's, so to me, it's on the list, and how it gets done is different than it's an amenity that we want.
And Sarah, a little bit of background here. You know, when we had a discussion with Ranch Capital regarding sort of the center part of the downtown core, there's a lot of discussion among the board members about a potential pool. You know, is it a community pool? Is it on top of the parking garage? Seeing, you know, I think there's a cognizant recognition that, you know, the town probably needs another pool for the community. With or without a top, I think calling it an indoor pool, I think really helps to, you know, emphasize the fact that we don't have any indoor pools within the town. But we also have a dual need, you know, more pool facilities because the town's grown by another 30%. And, you know, none of them can be used for, you know, 8 months of the year. So how do we balance that? So.
Right.
But, you know, to Corey's point, we have talked about this a lot for the last 3 years.
Right. And then we've also lost the support of a huge fitness center that partnered with the town in the past and no longer partners with the town. So,
Yep.
yeah.
Right.
Ouch, hold on.
Let me pull this out.
Well, but that's also where we've we've been in the last few years is we've been living the, let's chase this, let's chase that, and try and push it forward. And, we're doing our best to make sure we're the voice from the community and try and push these things forward. And we bring what people tell us to this committee, and that's what we're all various different backgrounds and experience of what the PROSTAC means. So I think this is great. It's a great discussion, and I'm glad you're bringing it up again. But I don't know how much we can do on it other than it's still high on the list. And it comes down to, yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
But if you're interested, we can give you the history of where we've been in some of this some of the time.
Okay.
Because we've had multiple discussions on that exact topic.
Okay.
Yeah. I would love to see it.
So we have a motion and we have a second.
Yeah, so any further discussion? So motion,
By the way, just so you understood, so what I put in there, I have the motion, but I also said, prior to the motion, discussion included strike of the agility course as that amenity was already completed and assumed in the motion.
correct, okay.
Yes.
So we
Yep.
capture that piece.
Yep, and then so basically, well, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
I voted aye.
Oh, sorry, your
I had
hand
it
was
up.
down when I looked over, so I just checked it. You were typing, you were typing.
There is no such thing as multitasking, as serially tasking rapidly, and I'm trying to do it.
So, I guess the only thing is, we'll take the latest, resorted, amenities list and remove the agility course, and then that will be what we put forth to the town board. Okay? And with that, the next item on our list was the, town 50. Sure. It's okay, we've been out of order. Hold on, let me
He's got
check this.
too.
8:34, click, we went to public comment.
I just wanted to stop in and say thanks to the group for all the hard work you guys did on the Riverbend Zone 3
Thank you.
engagement. I termed Riverbend because you guys spent so much time hearing from the public about Riverbend, but the fact that it was Zone 3 related, and I truly think you guys did a great job. And considering that most of this was my fault from bringing this up 3 years ago, and that I really kicked this off for you guys and ended up working so much of your time, just want to say thanks. So write down some cookies for a job well done, and just thank you.
Well, and with that, I just want to say too that, there was a fact finding and input finding, and one of the things with the Zone 3 is it's still on our list for an amenity, and I think that there was certain members of the community that still would like to have something in that area, Zone 3, and so on our amenities list, I'm also going to change the name to Zone 3 versus Riverbend. We had a strong, and as you heard from us, opposition to Riverbend itself, but
Yeah.
there is still, if we could find an opportunity for something in that zone, I think that it's on our list.
Yep, and I agree completely, and I think the conclusion you guys came to and what you sent up to the board hit the nail on the head, so great job.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And, at 8:35, we will close public comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
All right, so
Supper.
I'm watching my figure. All right, so moving back then, we're done with those two. The town, I wanted to touch base on the Town 15 vision, and just, we started this discussion last week or last month, sorry. But I wanted to bring it back up to the committee and talk about what I think our task is on this. I believe that there was lots of discussion on whether or not we should be identifying what's in the Town 15 vision. And do you guys know what Town 15 is? So I gotta step back every once in a while and say,
Oh,
hold
no,
on.
I do. It is the open space between Colton and McCaslin.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
right by
Exactly.
Colton Drive.
Right here, yeah. So, it's 15 acres of land, and it's
The town owns it.
indoor recreation center.
Not be confused with Richardson.
Anyway, I think that as we were looking at recreation centers, as we were looking at other things, there was an offer brought to the board about doing a school there. And I think the key is that the board is looking for, if somebody were to come with a proposal tomorrow, what would be the things that we want to maintain in that zone that, because it is an open piece of property that could be developed. I don't know what the development classification is, but there's opportunity to develop that. The town bought it a few years back. When I was first on the committee, someone told me that it was purchased in the intent that we would put recreation there. And that, is hearsay. I don't know exactly all the words, but, so my understanding of it is that we really just want to, as a committee, as the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Committee, and as the Open Space Committee, really define, if somebody were to come tomorrow, is there something sacred that we want? Is there something that we feel that as long as they were putting 10 tennis courts in some other building, or 10 tennis courts and just open space around this zone, that would be acceptable, or soccer fields, or a baseball field, pickleball, a very large pickleball center. An equestrian center, I think, was even brought up at one point. And, for me, we've talked a lot about the vision plan or the recreation corridor. I've kind of coined pushed the recreation corridor about, from Autry to Colton. And is there something we would want in that zone? So I think that that's really the discussion. And I don't think it's really that we have any recommendation or any finalization on this. It's more of, I want to continue the discussion. I want you guys to think about it each month and come with ideas that maybe we can eventually form into a recommendation that we feel that it would be something needed, and we could put our recommendation with OSAC to really formalize what we think the property could be.
And I don't think we have to be specific to say that we think it should be used for X, Y, or Z. I think that could behoove us to be a little bit vague, generic, in the sense to say, we think it should be used for recreational purposes. Leave it at that. Used for this type of purposes, leave it at that, right? So something to that, to help guide the town, so when people come with proposals, does this type of thing that they're proposing fit in the vision of it, if we say recreational thing, does it fit within that? And that'll help guide their first, pass of evaluating the proposal.
I think what we had talked about too, if I recall some of the suggestions made, had to do with more joint recommendation we might make with OSAC to say, like you said, we don't have a specific recommendation, but we recommend that this area be reserved for some combination of, say, recreation and open space purposes to be determined.
But I think that's also where the committee, we need to continue to discuss it so that we have a recommendation from the committee that we could work with OSAC on what their recommendation is and get a joint recommendation. But we can't just jump into let's have a joint recommendation.
Well, except to reserve it for those uses.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think
But that's what I'm saying is
Yeah.
we can't just say, well, we're going to have a joint recommendation next month because we've never talked about it.
No, I see what you're saying.
So we just need to have the continued discussion and within the group come up with what we feel are high priorities: recreation, open space, whether it's active recreation, passive, kind of just a nice green park, So anyway,
But I also think that assuming we're able to move forward with the master plan, that I would look to as a more guiding document to, as we talked about in earlier meetings, what kinds of things are perceived as missing versus what's the latest hot thing of the month type of whatever that we're supposed to try to find a place for. Or is at least by making our opinion known that this area is kind of not off limits, but on limits for these uses.
So, I'm kind of a jump to the chase type of person, right, for Liza, if you haven't known. I mean, does anybody on this committee right now, and we don't have everybody, but the five of us, does anybody here feel that it should be used for other purposes besides recreation and open space for the town, the town population? Do we think that it should be used for
A gas station?
and recreation?
You just want me to throw it
and-
out
and-
there to see the nose?
But,
A gas station?
And when I'm saying recreation, I don't mean, recreation could include library, other things, fine arts, I mean, things that, for people to recreate in. So recreation or open space type things is for the town to use as they need, as opposed to like a used car lot or a gas station or whatever. Does anybody feel that this area should be used anything else to recreate or open space? I just want to kind of feel the pulse of the rest of us. I think we're all kind of on the same
Yes.
page there, that we're all kind of leaning towards the same thing, and maybe that'll help guide our thoughts.
I mean, to me, it's a cultural center, recreational center, community center.
Mhm.
To me, it's the hub of, some people wouldn't agree, but from a size of the town and end to end, north to south, it's kind of in the heart of the town. It is not town center, which we're drawing a lot of that business opportunity there. But to me, it's that recreation ends at this point and you go to open space, which is a
Right.
very cultural experience.
It's a nice transition.
Yeah. So to me, it seems like it should be something like that. I know that the other side of Colton has the old car dealership, that has other opportunities that may be very aligned with this location. And I think that's one of the things that, as we looked at, I'm going all over the place, but as we looked at the recreation center within what's the new recreation center over there? Lifetime. I forgot the name already. Lifetime or with
They let me know
Impact.
every month
Well,
on my credit card statement.
I know. Stop. But as you start looking at, those were on the periphery of town, and that was one of the things to me that there's a really great opportunity for cultural recreation community space. And the tie to the outdoors and connectivity would be awesome.
I guess
But not use the whole thing.
the point I was trying to make is that I think we're all kind of more aligned
We're all
to the
there.
same vision.
I agree.
So I don't know how much discussion we need. We don't have, if we want to include Ron and Dan, but I think even from listening to them, I think we're all kind of aligned to this vision. So it's probably more of a, how do we want to word that so that it makes sense what our vision is? And maybe we try to craft something up and start wordsmithing that a little bit. And then we take that to OSAC to say, we're kind of unanimous in this vision.
I heard you were multitasking and crafting that up over there while we were talking, right?
I can try to put some words together.
That would be great if you could.
There's no way he can get some words put together. For the end of
It's a
the
challenge,
meeting.
I know it.
No, it's not. I just got to find the time.
It's all night, what are you talking about? That's when I do my best work. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it up and talk about it. I don't think it's something that we have to spend a lot of time on tonight, but I just did want to touch base. With that, I tasked Corbett to come up with some words. Before those meeting minutes come out, there'll be some words thrown in.
Can they be four-letter words?
Leave him
It's
alone.
not a
He's-
three-letter word.
He's serial tasking right now.
And they're words that could even end up in an appendix of the master plan.
Well, I think, and I guess that's the other thing, if we really look at a master plan or a vision update,
Vision, yeah.
there's a lot of community input within that. There's a lot of just understanding the overall, what the community has. And so how that all ties in, it'd just be a matter of how big and what the extent of that is. And that, I guess there's more to discuss with the town board and staff of what that would entail. And I think that I'm gonna jump to updates, but I think that also ties into, really quick, I'm gonna hose this up, all right? The agenda's all, but just from a master plan and visioning document, the CAPS has a creative spaces discussion tomorrow night at 5:30 to 6, 5:30 to 8, 5:30 to 8. And that, is getting into that same, and it's discussing creative spaces and artistic spaces. I'm not really sure what all that means, but I think that maybe that also comes into placemaking and where, where those opportunities are and what those are. And that starts to branch off into what is a park or what's an outdoor space, or because I'm not really sure if they're talking indoor spaces or outdoor spaces. But that is tomorrow night, and we have ability to have 3 people go if anyone's available. Hint, hint. So we can finalize that later, but I just wanted to bring that up too. It's kind of my transition from town 15 to next, but.
Can I piggyback on that?
Always.
This is a little bit for Allison, but it would be good to maybe bring up in that, because one of the things that we've talked about, which may be brought up there, is interpretive signage along some of the sidewalks and trails through there. Maybe that's going to be discussed. I know I've looked at a couple of them, specifically one I can call off the top of my head, over by Autry Park, kind of just past the BMX track, a little bit closer to Rock Creek. There's a sign there that looks like it's severely warped from weathering. Either that or somebody set it on fire, I don't know. It looks like it got hot and warped, and I don't know if any of the other ones are, so that would be an interesting discussion point to say, how whether these interpretive signages are holding up over time as well, if that gets discussed.
So does that mean you're not going to go tomorrow?
I am. You want to see my schedule?
I'll compare.
Okay.
Do we want to finish with maybe who will be coming?
Who
with
can
this item?
potentially go?
Who can potentially?
I cannot.
I might be able to. What time is it again?
5:30 to 8, I believe.
I'm not going to be able to make that, unfortunately. I'll be down.
How about if I show up at 6 to 7?
I'm not sure. I haven't been trained on what the workshop is going to be like.
No.
We're supposed to be trained tomorrow on, how, because the consultant is in town and certain people are going to be facilitators for the tables. And I'm not exactly sure what the layout is. I'm sure any participation would be welcome. But I'm not sure what the format is yet.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought. Well, and that's, we found out Ron had to leave town earlier today, and Dan was out today, but I'm not sure if he's out tomorrow. And then Todd was still out until like Friday.
I have an unaccompanied minor flying back from Texas that I have to get to the airport when his
It's
plane leaves
overrated.
Texas.
It's overrated. No, you just have to be there when they land, trust me.
No, you have to be there an hour before they land.
I showed up 5 minutes before my kids
I know,
landed
I've done this
yesterday.
before.
Anyway, I'll see if I can do it.
I'll talk to my husband about leaving Friday morning as opposed to Thursday night.
You don't
No,
have to
don't do
change
that.
all your plans. I just, that's an opportunity to talk about. Starts that first step in a visioning process and where the master planning is going. And it'd be good for our committee to take part. And with that tie to the open space and recreation, creative spaces on the outdoors would tie to parks. So I don't know exactly what they're covering, but it'd be really great if we could have a
Are
couple
you supporting
representatives
this?
there.
Yeah, so this is
Did you
new
be
for
able
the
to-
town. We've never had a CAPS master plan. We've never had a creative placemaking thing. So this is, as Allison said, she's going through training literally the day of. So it's going to be a crush of, the consultant's trying to get as much information this weekend, with the session tomorrow, with a lot of the community leaders, such as the committee members, trustees. Saturday is the Superior Spectacular over here, between TJ Maxx and Michael's. Definitely go to that 5 to 8 p.m. And then on Tuesday, there's another follow-up creative placemaking sort of like tomorrow night, and that's going to be at the Bell Flatirons. This is just to try to get as many inputs as possible into the consultant, and I kind of view the consultant just trying to take all this data from as many people as possible to just kind of get a feel for what Superior is, what Superior, where and what, and it's just going to be a big blender for me, because I don't know how they're going to interpret all of this information, but I'm really anxious to see this. The town hired Happy City, and there's a book called Happy City, if you guys ever feel like reading it. It's actually, I read the first 2 chapters. It's fascinating in terms of how creative placemaking can really bring a city together or a town together. And the book starts off with Bogota, Colombia, where the mayor came in and started shutting streets down on the weekends, and how it just unlocked a lot of the potential for the town, for the people to start coming together. And then as you look across South America, lots of big towns like Rio de Janeiro, every Sunday they shut down all the major streets, and people just get out, they're out, hanging out with each other, and little things like that. So there's small incremental things that, creative placemaking can help you do, but they can also be very transformative. And kudos to CAPS to really get this going with the master plan. And I think it really will be a way for us to kind of, what is it that is Superior? What's so special about this town? Other than the green spaces and the parks, which are great, but there's other attributes of this town that we find fascinating. That's why we all stay here. So that's what this is designed to do, and I think we're all optimistic that what comes out of this at the end will be really, really cool. But I think right now at the front end we're all scratching our heads because we had the consultant gave an overview 4 weeks ago, and then the board talked about this last week, and there's a lot of in a typical master plan, it's very formulaic. We know exactly, the steps and, who's meeting with whom and all that. And this is a little different for us. So it's hard to describe exactly what's happening because most of us have never been through it.
So it's a great point, by the way, because, with the Louisville Friday night things that they have, I have almost every weekend I get somebody from Lafayette or Erie or somebody, hey, you want to come meet me in Louisville and go, hang out at their Friday night thing? I have yet to have anybody send me anything saying you want to go hang out in Superior.
Correct. Saturday night. Sir.
Isn't the Lego movie on?
Friday night Lego movie, and then Saturday is the Superior Spectacular. Let's call all your Lafayette and Louisville friends down here.
Circus.
Slide a circus.
Okay, so
it doesn't look like anybody right now is going to be able to support.
I'll try and finagle my way into that. Yeah.
It's at 5 or
5:30. I'll see if I can make it. I'm pretty sure I can. I just gotta. Yeah. Tonight's my 20th anniversary, by the way.
Happy anniversary.
So I'll see if I can make it tomorrow.
The questions will be there 21.
So that's where we're going to continue to push forward. It's 5 minutes to 9, Allison.
Right.
And we're going to step back to the 2020 budget recommendations to wrap up our agenda. So every year, about mid-year, we look at the budget recommendations for the following year and things that we feel should be put on the budget for the town and to propose to the town board. So with that, I like to tie this to the amenities priority list, the 5-year trails plan, and any other topics that we have. I know we did put forth a recommendation for the, as I was reminded, the trail that is not on our trails list recently. But I don't know if we want to add that as a recommendation again, and any other additional priorities that we as this group feel should be brought forth. And Allison, I don't think I have to finalize it tonight. If we want to add just like a start of the discussion tonight, and if we want to have Ron and Todd and Dan provide any other further comment next month, but we'd have to finalize a recommendation next month, I believe, or does it have to be in July? I can't remember.
Typically, we do finalize it in July, but
That's what I
I don't
thought.
know how much wiggle room we have.
Okay. Well, I mean, we could put forth a recommendation tonight if we have things that we would like to recommend.
And we can always add
And then,
to that.
yeah, if we needed to, we could add additional items next month. So with that, any discussion? Thoughts?
Well, do we want to go to the priorities list then, that we just finalized?
I don't know, that's
Because
where I'm,
that's where you had the recommendations for budget, right? You asked us whether to target.
yep, I'm letting you guys just tell
Okay.
me what you think at this point, and,
So maybe along those lines though, do we have our 2019 budget recommendations that we could use to say, these are the things that we recommended for 2019? And look at that and see.
she needs her glasses too.
You want to borrow these? They really do help.
Allison.
You can look like a school teacher like me.
It's the speed, it's not my eyesight.
They don't have to be the amenities or the five-year trail
Yeah.
plan, but I do think that, you know, part of our yearly update of items comes into those lists as a consolidated list to the board as proposals that, you know, if we have opportunities, we could utilize. But if we have specific ones out of that list that we do want to pinpoint, I would say that, you know, for me, I would start with the master plan
I
or
was just gonna
a
say-
vision plan as number one.
Yep.
Please give us that next year.
Give us some funding to.
At least
consult with somebody.
Right, some sort of consultant to provide some sort of direction and vision plan. I don't know how much that budget is or what the extent of that is, whether that's isolated or big picture. But that would be one thing, and then Allison maybe has a list of what we did last year.
Yep,
We could touch base on.
here's from July of 2018. And we just have budget recommendations for 2019. So they would be for 2020. And then we have A, B, C, D. And we have, as a reminder, almost 1 million from general fund is still committed to pay for Wildflower Park. We have, budget is committed to items for parks 1 and 2. We have potential recommendations include Tract H, Audrey Park Master Plan, dog park maintenance, disc golf improvements, similar to when it was in Purple Park. And D, PROSTAC 5K spending options can be off-site meetings, conferences, et cetera, and not just giveaways at events.
We always
Forgot
know.
about that.
Well, we did,
We talked about.
we did approve like ice cream or whatever it was for the,
Yeah, for the engagement.
Right.
we did use some of it.
Yep.
But we do have funds left.
Right, I know,
For your
To-
reading glasses for everybody?
so just to divert a little bit, I think that we did at one point, I looked up, there was some outdoor Parks Recreation convention conferences that we looked at as well. I think that was toward the end of last year, and it was something I kind of dropped off. the list.
NRPA,
Yeah, it was like out in the mountains somewhere.
COSA.
I'd have to get out my computer and find it, but we did look at a few of those, and, you know, there's a couple day thing where you'd have to do an overnight somewhere and spend 2 days at a conference, and, you know, that kind of funding. I believe that with a one-night hotel and paying for the conference, it's really not out of the budget that we would be able to do that, or a couple people. So, there's that opportunity. That's, I guess, not what I was planning on talking about, but, yeah, I don't even know if I put that on I don't think that's on the work planner anyway. That's why I probably fell off my radar lately.
Well, other committees have gone to conferences for different trainings to gather ideas from different municipalities or entities that might help their mission and resolutions, like kind of fit in line with the
Right.
things that they're interested in doing for the year.
And it comes to, if we were to go to a conference of some sort of parks conference, that, you know, there is the latest trends in parks and developments of rejuvenation of parks and equipment and things like that. And so there's a lot of opportunities and ideas that come out of those that could feed back into, there's one of our bullet points on the amenities of always upgrades in parks. And when we did have a budget of that 35,000 a year, we looked at upgrades within parks each year, but that budget kind of went away with some of the grant money.
That
and
goes to
movements.
Wildflower now.
Right. So, We haven't really looked into little small upgrades on each park, but there is that one park upgrade list.
I also have 2017s here, just for a quick reference. PROSTAC requests that the following budget items be added to the 2018 Town of Superior budget. Consultant for Recreation Center ballot question, 100,000. Pirate Park Playground embankment slide and trail connections to Coyote Ridge, if not completed in 2017, 70,000. And South Pool Skate Park improvements, 300,000.
Right, and we did get the south part, the skate park build, and we did go through some consultant phases on the recreation center. So, did I say that wrong?
You know, it'd be interesting to do along the lines of what you guys were just talking about, though, instead of maybe a conference. It'd be interesting to maybe host an open house with some of the other similar committees from nearby cities like Erie, Lafayette, Longmont, Boulder, Louisville, and just open, host an open house at Forum where we can just kind of discuss things, kind of have a closer knit one. That wouldn't be too much, I don't think.
Because I think Broomfield has like a lot of interconnectivity of trails.
That's because they're all spread out.
Yeah.
So, I guess I don't have the verbiage for it, but I mean, I think that number one, we would look at a potential, a dollar allotment for a consultant for a vision and master plan, vision/master plan update for parks and recreation opportunities. Parks, recreation, trails opportunities.
And just a quick note, this year, the Colorado Parks Rec Association, their annual conference is October 9th through 11th in Vail.
See, I knew it was up in the mountains.
Yeah, I thought I remembered Vail,
It
yes.
switches around
What day was that? October 9th and 10th?
through 11.
Okay.
It's the 3-day weekend of PBSD. The kids don't school that Monday.
Fabulous. I can take my kids there then.
Because I have that PBSD memorized.
Wow.
We travel a lot.
I travel every week, but I only know my week ahead. Okay. Well, I guess it comes down to, without even doing a budget recommendation, if anyone's interested, we could look into somebody from the committee going to, or someone from the committee and even a staff member accompany somebody up and go into that for, education for the staff as well as for the committee to bring ideas to our discussion. Just think about that.
Well, do we need,
I think you should just add it to the recommendation. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we have to add it to the recommendation, as long as we have it within the budget that we had from last year. If you're within, say, $1,000 to make that trip, you could probably we could talk about it as a committee and sign up and get somebody going even in a couple months.
do we need to recommend that $5,000 every year, or is that assumed? Did we recommend that, did we include that in our budget recommendations, for that to be included every year?
I think it was,
I think now that everyone's budgets have been standardized, you don't have to make a recommendation, but I would just put it in as like item D, our typical, amount. I don't think it would hurt.
So, I'm hearing two good things so far that we could start the budget recommendation with right now, and I think we're gonna all probably get an agreement that next year our focus should be mostly on, unless these other little fires pop up, is gonna be on the vision, right? That's gonna be probably like 2 years ago, last year we spent most of the time doing the rec center. This one we spent a lot of time doing zone 3. Use my words carefully because words matter. And then we'll probably end up spending a lot of time talking about that. So I personally think that that's a good start for those two things. And then we can add to it if we want to continue this conversation next month. Everybody think that there's anything missing right now, glaringly missing?
and I think if I recall correctly, we went through the budget and there were certain things like irrigation at Autry was a potential upcoming budget item, and trees is a standing budget item because when we,
Yep.
when we look at parks, I look at trees because there's always natural shade or shade structures in parks. And there's a lot of replacement of trees required with the ash borer. And therefore, you know, as long as that's in the budget already, it's not something that we have to ask for. But if it's not, that's something that we could potentially say within our parks, we feel that we want to make sure. I think there was even a map that showed every tree in town.
Yep.
And we've looked at that a couple of times and,
Yes, they do, they have location.
right, so.
By
And
the-
they're rated for health and everything.
By the way, we also, which I don't think we fulfilled, we had an action last winter, I want to say it was around November, December, for folks, and we divvied them up to go look at parks, to see what shade, what additional trees for shade we might need in parks. And, you know, during the winter, it's hard to determine what shade we may need, so that's something we might want to revisit now we're in the summer, because that may contribute to any recommendations for the budget.
And like Corey mentioned too, because of the ash borer, you know, the group may want to think about, you know, how long is this going to take for it to really impact all of our ash trees, which can take up to 10 years. But if we want a contingency plant around areas that have more of a mass of ash trees, and contingency planning is just popping a young tree in near these groups, standing groups of ash trees, and letting it have a few years to get bigger before the older ash trees may have to be removed. And then there's treating, the expense of treating existing ash trees and how those are being ranked and everything too.
It'd be interesting to have a lesson on that, because I would assume if you put a healthy tree next to one that's got ash borer, that you may be
Infecting.
infecting it. And
You don't put another ash tree in, you
Oh,
put a
a
different
different.
species. Yeah, and the diversification of trees that are planted too, just in case another type of problem occurs with another group of tree, you know, so. Anyway, we have so much information on that, I'd be happy to share it with you.
So I'm just writing down a few notes, and whether or not they're actually in the current budget or not, but just from a master plan, vision plan update would be our A, but, or number one, but underneath that would be like an A, focus on Town 15 recreation opportunities, as well as the community corridor to Autry Park. Autry Park is still one that we've talked about a lot in the last 2 years with we dropped in the skate park. There's still potential to put pickleball in there. There is lots of discussion that we've been having about a few years ago. It was never mowed enough, and the amount of snakes and stuff out there. So there was lots of discussion about irrigation and putting in the irrigation so you can actually mow that and have a little bit nicer of a disc golf course. So upgrades to the disc golf course. But again, this all comes into what's the big vision for Autry, and is there a way to upgrade it? I'm not sure if irrigation at Autry is in there with trees, because that's the other thing with the disc golf, is they were saying just, you know, obstacles, tree, whatever, that you have to get through to make the park good. So, but those are, you know, kind of offshoots of a vision plan and a vision update. But if there's certain things that, you know, drive the focus of the vision update first, we could look at, you know, is Autry a focus? Is Town 15 is not really a need to do something, but, you know, something to just understand what could be capable of being put in there and could be adjusted. Anyway, then I went down to just tree replacement budget would be another line item 2 or something. And then 3 would be just the committee budget maintained for activities and opportunities within the next year. And we don't really know what those are until we really have a set plan of our yearly work plan. But that's just what I heard. Any other thoughts? Ideas to add to that? I mean, that was just And I'm hoping some of these are maybe already in the budget, and I know that there were placeholders at one point, and whether or not that's still the same way, but, because I know everyone, I think you said it too, when you interviewed for the PROSTAC committee, one of my key things was little kids and shade in our park systems.
Yeah.
And shade over this is the double-edged sword. Can I put a tree close enough to the plastic that's hot? Or it still has to be 10 feet away, and then it's a little sapling and it doesn't provide enough shade. So a tree is really a 5-10 year investment.
Right.
And so the more we can push on it now, it still provides a great space in the future.
I'm
So,
all about it.
so to me, I'm like, that's one of the initiatives I had before we went into the Zone 3 park analysis is really, and that's why I still want to look at parks and just understand what their needs are and where we can put trees. So to me, any budget for trees that we can enhance that budget.
The east side of every single playground in this town.
Well, and we do have standing line items, but we know that standing line item, you know, especially once the ash borer hits, it's not gonna hardly make a dent in some of it. That's why we're trying to, you know, assess everything, our stock, and, you know, figure out the plan on how all that replacement is gonna go as far as, you know, being able to afford it also.
So I'm going to jump right out into the, deep end and say the other thing I would like to put on the 2020 budget recommendations is some of the trail connectivity on south of Colton in McCaslin, along McCaslin. Is because I see people run on the road out there a lot, and it'd be great to have that. I know how many people use it north of Colton. South of Colton, I see people run out there, and that, I don't know, I guess it's one of those that we had on the expedited trails in 2016, but that's one. I'm sure there's other trails that I would love to see as well, but I speak for myself, right?
I think the connectivity to town center, it should be a priority as well.
Agree with that too.
I agree.
Yeah.
Does that include a temporary trail?
Ooh.
Budget for a temporary trail to connect?
Where are you going to locate that temporary trail?
Well, get budget and work it in part of the time.
What do you say, 1G?
1G, 1F, 1H. They're all the same.
But it's a great idea. I mean, especially when we consider lanterns and then the future FDP behind it. That area to try to get to downtown, via the dirt field is going to be off limits to pedestrians for a while.
And I think getting it in front of the board sooner than later, especially with lantern development kind of still being developed, and hopefully we can work with them to get as much connectivity through that section of town, makes the most sense with just the population density.
Yeah.
So I wrote down, and Corbett, tell me if I'm wrong, expedite a temporary and permanent connection to town center.
I just put down, discuss trail connectivity to town center, including temporary trail.
Perfect. Because I know that right now, I would say that town center is important, but I don't know how much we can push the trail other than the temporary or permanent connection from town center through Tract H. Because on the other side of Tract H, it's all development driven, and it's important that we maintain and approve those trails. But if we can get something to Tract H, the concrete path to nowhere, that's the ideal for me.
Yeah,
I agree.
from a timeline perspective, and I can't remember any of my lettering any longer, but the Thrive piece of it's going to be getting done soon. And that's really close to Tract H, so the temporary trail connecting the H will then get us, right down there pretty easily.
1F.
Yes.
Whoa.
1F is the ideal.
Yeah. Oh, well,
There
I
it
mean, what
is.
I was thinking is 1C
Yeah, I was
is going to be
thinking you meant
the
1C.
piece that's connected to the Thrive development. And some of that is, not too far away from being done. at least the piece of development to the north.
When we
East,
talked to the
northwest.
developer, he did state that 1C, depending on which FDP is approved, it's right now, it's in a swale between the two.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Yeah.
it's in a drainage area,
Yeah.
so as they finalize it,
True.
you could maybe can make that connection. But yeah, you'd have to tear it out when they do the
Yeah.
working in. But again, it's the same issue as 1F where there's construction and issues going on right now.
Yeah.
So those are the two trails, to me, that would tie the best
Yeah.
to town center for quick access.
I'm looking at the wrong 1F. I was confused. Sorry.
Oh, you gotta look at the overall, sorry.
I'll look at that one. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I think 1F will definitely, alleviate a lot of the issues, the challenge, and this is the one that we're gonna have to work, quite a bit on with lanterns on that, massive cliff of an overhang over the development.
It's pretty big.
The east of Carvel. It's a good 20, 30-foot drop right now. But, as Dan pointed out with his pictures, you look at the end of Carvel, it's not designed as a cul-de-sac per se. There's not homes ringing around it. It's two homes with a big sort of
Yep.
opening. So.
So on our 2020 budget recommendations and expedited, do we want to put Trail 1C and 1F from the, I don't know if anyone's ever seen this other than just internally to this group, just to throw it out there. Actually, I know it hasn't because I worked with, I threw the numbers on myself, so I'll take on all those numbers.
Well, you could reference this document.
Well, and that's where I don't know if I'm going to keep all those numbers or just say that there's connectivity through tract H, so that way it's up to the board to determine what that
I think that's
connectivity
the
is.
right approach because, 1H may work better than the others when we factor in what the developer can do, what we've got
Yeah.
budget to do, and all the moving parts with the FDPs. And I think between the board and town staff and the developer, I think as many degrees of freedom as you can sort of suggest in terms of creating temporary and permanent
Right, because
connections.
otherwise I'm saying I want those two trails specifically.
Right.
And really, I want to say that somewhere along tract H, we want connectivity to town center.
Yep.
And
Yep.
to the current Rock Creek development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without any of the numbers.
I think, at least, for anyone who's reading the minutes or watching this, I think we can agree internally that 1F really works for the density of people that are on that northeast part of, sort of legacy Superior. 1H is not bad, it's just not necessarily the most effective for, the majority of folks that might want to come up that way, so. But, I think this is the challenge that we're always gonna have, in that there isn't gonna be a one-size-fits-all for everything, but as many degrees of freedom as the board has, that this is a desire by PROSTAC, then we can work through that.
Okay, so what I have is, we discussed trail connectivity from town center to tract H and connectivity from tract H to Rock Creek.
Yes.
So if we go back through the list, I mean, I threw out just various stuff, seeing what the discussion was and what agreed and didn't agree. But if we go back through the list, I mean, right now, I think we're all on the master plan as number one. Master plan, vision plan, right?
Agree.
And so what I have written down here is the vision plan, tree replacement, discretionary budget of the $5,000, I don't know what else to call that. Trail connectivity south of Colton on McCaslin. Trail connectivity from town center to tract H. Trail connectivity from Rock Creek to tract H, including temporary trail.
Okay. I guess I would just say, can we move around the order?
Yeah,
I didn't put order in here.
Yeah.
I was just trying to capture.
Right. And then I threw out the one along McCaslin because it's been 2016 expedited trails, and I was hoping to actually get something built from 3 years ago. So it's just one of the others on the list. But but I don't know if everyone agrees with that one either. That's just my opinion. And I think that, I totally agree that this connection is probably more important than that one. So,
I agree.
it's just a lot longer run, trust me. It's a lot longer run from my house to there.
I missed that
But
part.
when I get to the end of that concrete trail and have to turn around, it's a very long run back.
So you live South Colton?
Yeah.
Right, so
Back to 120.
I think we all, agree. So right now we're saying number one, vision plan, number two is what?
Trail connectivity to town center? Is that two? Or?
I would rank it as 2.
So two is truck connectivity from town center to tract H, and then also two from Rock Creek to tract H?
Yeah, I
Those are
think
both
that's
two?
all together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree, it's all together. Because I really think you have to work with
Yeah.
the developers on
On
kind
both
of
sides of track
And
H.
it's really, where can you get it all tied together? And both of them may be temporary or permanent, temporary to permanent installation. Can you get temporary? Can you do permanent? Which can you achieve?
Okay. So then the things that we still have in here were potential tree replacement, PROSTAC discretionary budget, and trail connectivity south of Colton on McCaslin. You know, and if we're gonna add to this, then we can always push things down if we add to it later on.
Right, I'm just trying to,
I think that personally, I think that if we're gonna try to use it, we would put the PROSTAC discretionary budget. If we're gonna try to use it to go to a conference or to invite other groups around or whatever else we're gonna do, that would be a good one, because that helps with the vision plan. That ties into one.
yeah, my comment would be that the vision plan would have its own budget and would have its own community engagement and opportunities. And that's more for development of the committee and opportunities within the committee. But, I guess I want to state with tree replacement budget, I would say that also an enhancement to parks and shade. Because it's not
Yeah,
just
right,
tree
right.
replacement, I want to make sure that we have a budget for additional trees within parks and opportunities for shade structures. Or not shade structures, but shade canopies of trees.
Tree replacement and shade enhancements for parks. Because they could be the same and they could be different.
Right. And then our master plan is just a master plan, but do we want to implement anything else within Autry? Pickleball was in the current document for the master plan that we had last year. We showed it, so there's kind of a rough understanding of where that is, but there's still no other improvements to Autry that are in the budget right now. Right?
Well,
Do you know?
I think that as far as pickleball, it has been put forth for next year, but it depends on if it gets approved or, you know, what happens during all the budget discussions.
Okay.
But it is on people's minds.
Well, that's why I just want to make sure Autry is a focus of, no matter what happens, I want to make sure Autry gets understanding in the vision plan and update, because I think it's one of the biggest undeveloped / halfway developed parks where there's opportunities for other amenities to be added to that location. or to be enhanced and revised. So just, yeah.
You saying it's a separate budget item or along the vision?
It's kind of along the vision, but I almost want to call it out, but I don't know, I guess if we get the vision for the whole town, that's great, and if we don't,
Well, if we do the vision, we
then
can always
I
have them focus on, okay, we want a vision, but
Right.
can you focus in this area
Yeah,
first, then
let's
just
just
kind of
not
work
worry
its way
about
down,
it.
so we get
Yep.
that earlier?
Okay, cool. Okay, so,
All right, so in order, the 5 that I have right now, if we want to keep it as is, vision plan, the trail connectivity, town center track age, Rock Creek track date, including temporary, tree replacement and shade enhancements for parks, PROSTAC discretionary, and then the trail connectivity south of Colton and Caslon.
anyone agree or disagree?
I agree.
Yeah,
like
I agree, because I also am under the assumption that some of these amenities will probably get tied into the vision plan as well.
Yep.
Yeah,
I would hope.
okay.
But if there are certain ones on the amenities list or on the trails list that you feel strongly about, I would recommend that we call it out specifically in the recommendations.
And again, we can always add to it, right?
Yeah.
If as we go home and we decide that, I think this is really important, we should try to add it to the budget, we can bring that up next month as a topic and add to this.
Okay.
This is the initial start of the list. And by the way, I'm fully in support, so I keep putting that number 5 on there, because we did have a vision to close out the McCaslin corridor there with the trails, and we got sidetracked with the with pickleball and with the rec center and with Zone 3. And so it's nice to get us focused back on what we thought was important.
Okay.
So
we have 5. Anything else, or do we feel that's good?
I think that's good for now. It's a good start.
I think it's a good start.
Okay.
Do we need to make
Do we need a motion?
All right,
Yep.
since I have written down, I make a motion that we add the following items to the 2019 PROSTAC budget for 2020. Sorry, make a motion for the 2020
Budget recommendations.
budget recommendations
As
in the
follows.
following order. Vision plan, trail connectivity from town center to track H and from Rock Creek to track H, including temporary trails, tree replacement and shade enhancements for parks, PROSTAC discretionary budget, and trail connectivity south of Colton on McCaslin.
I second the motion.
Perfect. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And the vote is unanimous. And it's approved. So therefore, with that, that wraps up our major topics. Our look ahead, the only piece we had was really the participation with CAPS, which we talked about previously. Yeah, and then, so we have been meeting ahead of the meetings, just to meet in a park and check out a park. What'd you recommend earlier in an email?
Oh, the park was, let's go look at Coyote Ridge, let's talk about it.
Another one I just popped in my head was Community Park, where we're talking about putting that trail in down over the hill and across the
That's a good
ditch.
idea.
The intersection, we could meet there and just walk that area just to see how feasible it looks, but I'm happy for anything.
Okay.
I know we didn't go anywhere today.
I like that idea.
Well, in Community Park, if we zoom down a little bit too, if we really want to hit Community Park and just walk in this area, we could also hit over here and see what this other trail is and what the community trail seems.
I have strong feelings because I love that trail the way it is, so I'll be a little bit biased. I don't want to see it get
Well,
all
and-
paved out and everything. It's very picturesque right now.
I
And
agree
that's,
with you
and that's
too.
one of the other things too, is that, when we talk about trails, if we don't agree with some trails or
Mhm.
don't want certain things on there, I mean, we can also have that discussion, because I know as the development of the Anderson property has moved forward, they did take out that crusher fine that I love riding on that crusher fine. And I know that's gonna go back in as concrete, I believe,
It is.
as a permanent concrete trail.
Yep.
So, just to FYI.
All right, never mind.
So, but anyway, definitely, we can talk about those things, and I know, some of the other topics we've had in trails is just ability to put in a concrete with a crusher fine adjacency, and some of that look at some of the trails. So we can look at the community park next week.
Yeah.
If that's all good.
Yeah.
I think it'll be hard to walk or see.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Kiting
it's
Ridge
so
unless
big.
we want to climb up the slope.
Next month or next week?
Next
Sorry,
month.
next month.
Thank you.
We can also tie in the social crossings across Colton.
Right.
Yeah,
To
and
see where
take a
that-
look at that.
yeah.
So we could probably meet in the Williams parking lot by the turf field and,
Yeah.
or somewhere in that zone, in that parking lot, and go from there. So that would be at like 6:30 or maybe 6:15 if possible before the 7 o'clock meeting, because we'll walk for 15, 20 minutes and then drive over here. So there's just that time to transfer between locations.
Yep.
And then, the only other thing, I wanted to throw out was, we touched base briefly that, next month, August and September, there may be an FDP, review and recommendation, that may come forth. So if everyone can make it, please show up and, hopefully adjust our schedules around it.
Do we have dates for that?
It's our regular meeting.
Oh, okay, good.
It'd be August
I'll be there.
something.
Going back
21st.
to the, community
21st.
park.
Really?
August 21st,
Yes, August 21st.
third Wednesday.
Okay.
It's late. but
Yeah, it is late,
I may
yeah.
or may not make
We'll get
it.
it right before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going back to community park, do we have a time? Did you guys say a time?
6:15.
Okay, I didn't hear it, so I was trying to type.
Okay. Anyway, with that, any other comments? Meeting adjourned?
Happy anniversary.
Yep.
Yay.
Thank you.